Welcome back to another Lazy Shell tutorial video. Today we're going to pick up right where we left off talking about event script commands. Let's get right into it. Next up on our category list is menus. Before we start into these, I'll warn you that some of these commands require that you have a fade in from black command afterward. Otherwise the game will just stay black when you exit the menu. Open shop menu is one of those commands. The name of the shop down here in the drop-down menu corresponds to the name that shop has in the items editor. This next command lets you choose from more specific events to run. You've got various menus and tutorials, the sequence where you enter the factory, and more. These next two commands force the game to reset. This first one will take the player all the way back to the start menu, where they must choose a file to play. The second command takes them back to the last save point they saved at. Open Save Game menu does just that. It opens up the menu to save the game. In the original, this command is only utilized on save points, but you could allow the player to save in other circumstances if you wanted to. This next one forces the player to watch a menu-related tutorial. Of note is that the tutorial for the Beatlemania game seems to be hard-coded to adding that command in the menu. In other words, once you unlock the Game option in the menu, this tutorial is brought up no matter what, even without one of these commands here. And this last one brings up the level up screen. This only makes sense to use if someone has received experience points and leveled up outside of battle. That's why in the original this command is only ever used in conjunction with stars that you find in chests. If an ally has leveled up, it runs the level up bonus sequence. If you try to use this when no one has leveled up, it'll bring up the level up screen for a second, and then it'll disappear because nobody leveled up. Now on to dialogues. It's time for lore and world building. Actual dialogues themselves are written in the dialogues editor, but this is how you make them display in the game. This first command is the most important one. It allows you to display the dialogue you want by picking it from this drop-down menu, or by entering its index number here. This drop-down for Show Above seems to affect whether the dialogue is displayed at the top or bottom of the screen, but there's no guaranteed way to get it to go where you want it to. Honestly, the game seems to display it where it wants to, regardless of what you select. Looking at the original game code, I've seen values all over the place, from NPCs that don't exist to ally characters that aren't on screen. The game seems to display it at the top more often than not, unless Mario is closer to the top of the screen. Down here we have the dialog box's properties. Closable means the dialog box will go away once the dialogue is ended. Otherwise, it'll stay on screen. If closable isn't selected, then you would need this command down below, close dialog, to close it. Asynchronous means that the dialogue happens independently of everything else. Basically, if you have an event script with multiple things happening, asynchronous will make it so the event can't progress until the dialog box has been closed. Multi-line makes the dialog box big enough for 3 lines of dialogue as opposed to 1. When editing dialogues, you'll see that there's room enough for 3 lines, but sometimes you only need 1, like for those messages that pop up when you get items. Background will bring up the brown, papery dialog box with black text. Having this unchecked will not add that dialog box, and the text will be blue. This next command works much the same way, but rather than choosing the dialog, the index number of the dialog displayed is whatever number is currently stored at memory 7000. This one runs a dialog for a specified amount of time before automatically closing. It'll be on one line, and it will be the blue text without the dialog box. You see this used in the Goomba Thumpin' game to tell you how much time you have remaining. Append to dialog will take the dialog and tack it to the end of whatever dialog is stored in memory 7000. You have the option of making this closable and asynchronous. If you added a dialog and didn't check the asynchronous button, You can add this command if you want it to be asynchronous. These next two commands are used when the dialog gives the player a choice between 2 or 3 options. You put one of these commands immediately after the command to run the dialog. If the player chooses option A, the event proceeds to the next command. If they choose B or C, it'll jump to whatever addresses you have entered here. Next, on to events. Run background event. The game can run up to 3 events simultaneously, a main event and 2 background events. But be warned, even if the game can run multiple events at the same time, doesn't mean they'll always run correctly. Generally, these events can't be too complicated or the game can't handle it. I suggest limiting how often you run multiple events at the same time, if you can. This command lets you run a background event of your choosing by entering that event number in this box. Return on level exit means that the event will end once the player leaves the current level. Remember that you can run 2 background events at the same time, so checking this Run as Second Script box specifies that this event is meant to be in the second slot. And then there's this middle property. It's another unknown property. We don't know what it does. These next 2 commands will run a background event of your choosing while pausing for a number of frames equal to whatever value is stored in a memory location of your choosing. The next command does the same thing, but will end the event when the player leaves the level. Again, there are another couple of unknown properties there. Stop background event and resume background event are similar. One stops a background event, the other resumes it. There's a related command down below to stop all background events. You may have noticed that some of these background event commands don't specify whether they apply to the first background event slot or the second. They always apply to the first slot. Want to change which event is in what slot? You can use these commands down below here. You can use these to move the current event to the main position or one of the background positions. Run event sequence lets you run an event from a specific list, such as the scene that plays when you enter the factory or opening the save game menu. Run event will end the current event and go to whatever event you specify. Run event as subroutine will go to the specified event, and then once that event is done, it comes back here to this event. Run event at return will go to the specified event, but only after the current event is done. Run star piece sequence will take you to the star pieces screen and show the number of stars specified by this box. Run Moleville Mountain sequence will take you to the Moleville Mountain minigame. Run Moleville Mountain intro sequence will play that demo version of the Moleville Mountain minigame that normally plays in the opening demo video that plays when you hang around the title screen for too long. Display pre-game intro title will display the names of the character you choose at the height you choose. These are the names as they appear in that same opening demo video I was talking about. Run ending credit sequence plays the credits, the parade that Luigi leads. XOR crashes into keep will play that specific cutscene, where XOR breaks the star road and crashes into the keep. Now we're on to jump to commands. Jump to address will end the current event and move to whatever address you've entered here. Jump to subroutine will also jump to a specified address, but then it'll jump back here once you hit a return command. A word of caution, these jump to commands can sometimes get messed up. The addresses you enter might get changed. Lazy Shell is supposed to update these events as you add more commands to make sure that they still jump to the same commands they're supposed to, but it doesn't always get it right. Sometimes it ends up changing those to the wrong addresses. It's just something to watch out for. Another one of those reasons to keep frequent backups. Loop start will keep repeating whatever batch of commands is entered between this command and the loop end command. Loop start count lets you specify a number of loops. Loop start frames, or timer, does the same thing, but lets you specify an amount of time in frames that it loops. And then both of these jump to start of script commands do the same thing. It goes back to the top of the current event script and starts reading those commands again. Next we have screen effects. You can see that there are multiple fade in and out from black commands. You can choose the duration with some of them, and others you can choose whether it's synchronized, meaning it happens while other event commands are occurring, or asynchronous, where the game will wait to complete the fade in or out before doing anything else. You can also choose the duration of time for some of them. Fade in from black is important. You need to have the screen fade back in from black anytime the player exits a shop menu, save menu, a battle, or enters a level. Otherwise, the game will just be stuck on a black screen. Fade in and out from color work the same way, but with a color of your choosing, instead of just black. These two star mask commands will create that star screen transition effect that you see in the ending credits. These next two commands are similar, but with a circle instead of a star. Initiate battle mask will do that screen wipe thing that happens when you initiate a battle. Tint layers lets you adjust the palette of the different layers of a level. We'll talk more about layers and what some of this terminology means when we get to the levels editor, but for now, know that you can use this command to change those. Priority set is similar. We'll talk more about this in the levels editor video, but again, just know that if you do ever want to change those things, this is where you'd do it. Reset priority set essentially undoes this last command we just looked at. Screen flashes with color will flash the screen a certain color of your choosing, perfect for dramatic effect. Pixelate layers will let you create a pixelation effect, like when you use the trampoline in Moleville Mines, you hit the ceiling and you get knocked out, the screen pixelates. You can choose which layers of the level to apply this pixelate effect to. These two palette commands allow you to adjust the colors within the level's palette. Just like in the ending scenes of the game when Exor fades away from Bowser's Keep and the red sky turns blue. However, they do require you to know a given level's palette sets, which, as far as I know, there's no way to know that beyond just guessing and checking. Sorry. These two commands do a circle mask, similar to the ones we already talked about, but you can make the circle center around an object of your choosing. You can also choose whether it will stay still or move around with the camera, and the width of the circle it eventually closes to. Then these last two commands are used to stop the camera from moving, and let it move again. Moving on to audio. These first two commands let you play a song of your choosing. The second one plays the song at the normal game's volume, while the first one maintains any volume changes that might be currently active. Fade in music will play a song starting at 0 volume and then make its way to normal volume. These two commands will fade the music out. This one fades it to 0, this one fades it to a volume of your choosing over a period of time of your choosing. Stop current music will stop the song right then and there. Adjust tempo will let you speed up or slow down a song. This command lets you choose the degree of the change and the period of time over which it occurs. There are related commands down below to lower the current tempo without specifying the degree of change of time, and another to bring the tempo back to normal. Adjust pitch will make the song sound higher or lower. Again, you can choose to raise it or lower it, how much the pitch changes, and the period of time over which the change occurs. There are similar commands to play, fade out, and stop sounds. Deactivate sound channels. We talked about sound channels in the audio video, but you can use this command to temporarily turn off different sound channels. Perfect for making some instruments play or not play during a song. These Audio 69 commands. We talked about these during the audio video, but there are some commands within songs to change the value stored in audio memory 69. These event commands will reference the value that's stored there. Now we move on to memory. We touched on this already in the action commands video, but memory is a great tool and one you absolutely need if you're planning on making a ROM hack of any substance. Memory is used to store values and set flags. This is how you make the game do certain things if certain events have or have not already happened. These first two commands are your gospel for game progression. You'll typically set a memory bit whenever the player does something you want the game to remember. Then you'll use these commands in various event scripts to say, if that memory bit is set, then go to this particular part of the script. Memory 7xxx can be used to store actual numbers to memory. This gives you a little more variety with what you can do with memory. Memory 7000 is used for things that will change frequently. You'll see that there's this entire category dedicated to it. There are many commands to look at this memory, compare it to certain numbers, check what level you're in, how many items you have, what button the player presses, and more. You'll often see a command to store whatever value is currently in memory 7xxx to memory 7000. Then there will be a command comparing that value in memory 7000 to some number, and then performing some action accordingly. Again, memory is a powerful tool, and I suggest learning how to use it. Next we have pause script. These various commands will pause the script if the menu is open, until a screen effect is done, until you scroll through the next couple pages of dialogue, or you can specify the amount of time you want the script to be paused. This first one lets you pause it for up to 256 frames. The second one lets you pause it for up to 65,000 and some change frames. And then last we have return commands. Return is what you use to end an event script. This tells the game, this event script is done, you can stop reading it now. If the current event is a subroutine of another event, return will end the current event and go back to that first event, as opposed to return all, which will end all current active events. And that's all for event scripts. I know these are complex, so kudos for sticking with it. As always, if you find these videos helpful and you want to see more, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, any confusion about how to create an event script, what you think you might be missing, anything like that, reach out and I'll do what I can for you. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.